On February 16 of 2016, Patty Ajut, the then Minister for Canada's Status of Women, said that the RCMP's previous estimate of 1,017 missing and murdered Indigenous women between 1980 and 2012 was likely far from true, and that 4,000 was more likely to be correct. This sparked a lot of questions regarding why such a large number of women have gotten very little, if any, media exposure. The truth is, this issue is so large that the Canadian government itself doesn't truly know how many Indigenous women have been murdered or gone missing. The number 4,000 is only an estimate. The impact of this is likely going to be long-lasting. It's going to feed fear into communities, and so many will be affected. Indigenous people continue to suffer the impacts of colonialism. Generational trauma is already a constant struggle for Indigenous people. This is no doubt also a traumatic experience for all parties affected. That additional danger is likely looming over every Indigenous woman's life, as they are 400% more likely to go missing than any other Canadian minority or majority. When looking at this issue in relation to the political spectrum, it is likely to be on the libertarian right, as most Indigenous ideology relies on little government intervention as prescribed by conservatism, and personal and economic freedom as prescribed by libertarianism. There are a lot of factors that tend to lead to injustices surrounding this issue, one of which is mishandling of cases in the RCMP. Recently, they created a campaign in 2022 to help solve cases of missing Indigenous women and 2S LGBTQIA+ people. The campaign consists of highlighting some cases over a 10-week period. In this campaign, they also asked the public to submit tips through canadasmissing.ca and to share RCMP social media posts. Looking at the desired outcome and then the results, we can see that the objective was to help get outreach for more people through social media, therefore resulting in heightened awareness and potential for more missing people to be identified or found. As of this month, there is no reported result to this specific campaign. To quote directly from the RCMP website itself, to be an officer means to, quote, work to prevent and solve crime, enforce federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal law, build and maintain relationships with communities, and above all, keep Canadians safe. Considering there seemingly has not been any change made, it leads me to believe that the institutions of society are not working well for many people. Members of society, majorly Indigenous people, also cannot use systems to accomplish their goals for the betterment of everyone, proven by the fact that PhD supervisor Jerry Flores found that 209 of 219 testimonies in a report detailed negative experiences with police in regards to management of their missing persons case. This issue impacts Canada locally through its revealing of just how unhelpful institutions like police can be when dealing with something as big as a missing or murdered person. The same 209 testimonies also shared a common theme of police indifference. It also impacts Canada globally by potentially putting it in trouble with the UN Human Rights Commission. In Radhika Kumaraswamy's 2003 report, she described the exact duty of due diligence that is owed for violence against women. This idea of duty of due diligence was from the Inter-American Court of Human Rights definition of, quote, an illegal act which violates human rights and which is initially not directly imputable to a state can lead to international responsibility of the state, not because of the act itself, but because of the lack of due diligence to prevent the violation or to respond to it as required by the convention, end quote. The first thing Kumaraswamy included was, quote, to prevent, investigate, and punish acts of all forms of violence against women, whether in the home, the workplace, the community, or society, in custody, or in situations of armed conflict, end quote. All things Canada has, as I have shown, consistently failed to do for Indigenous women. Considering there hasn't been much change made, I'm proposing two solutions. Firstly, to honor the duty of due diligence highlighted in the Kumaraswamy's 2003 report. Secondly, and lastly, to honor Articles 3 and 4 of the UN DRIP regarding the right to and exercising self-determination. Article 4 states, Indigenous peoples in exercising their right to self-determination have the right to autonomy or self-government in matters relating to their internal and local affairs, as well as ways and means for financing their autonomous functions, end quote. This specifically would allow Indigenous communities to carry out the procedures necessary to achieve justice. Clearly, federal and provincial forces cannot adequately provide the solace necessary to stop injecting harm into Indigenous communities. There needs to be a lot of institutional and cultural changes made to be able to make meaningful progress with regards to this issue. I implore you to visit the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's website and further educate yourself and see what you can do for Indigenous communities. Thank you for watching.